Through him, says St. Paul, writing to the Romans, we received grace and our apostolic mission. He goes on to make them aware that they have a specific call already by the fact of being called to be Christians. Kletheos, hagios, called. Now, called saints or called to be saints, it is just called saints in the Greek. And John Paul II expands on this in Novo Millennio Iuniunte, indicating that if a person asks for holy baptism, by that very fact he is asking to become a saint. In some cultures, the tone of preaching for a long time was that essentially of keeping them out of hell. But not always was this other element put in. It's not enough to avoid mortal sin. If one avoids mortal sin and on a daily basis does nothing with venial sin, so-called, because it is easier to pardon, venia is pardon, then one will not do this other bit. One will not be called a saint, or fulfill that call to be a saint. Early on in France, I remember being given a volume by a Jesuit on the big problem in the mystical body, that very few realized that they were called to, in French, réaliser, to realize, to bring to reality the life of grace that they had, to live it, which meant intimacy with a divine guest, and to do all in the presence. That is much higher than just avoiding mortal sin, to keep out of hell. There was also in a Catholic culture quite often the element that when everyone went to church, there was not an awful lot of difference between Catholics and, as it were, the members of the society, because they were all into it, which meant that certain things, which no one really blinked at, were part of it, but they were constant venial sins. One thinks of the amount of abuse of the holy name, or of the name of God, or of the saints, or of bad language, vulgarity, or smoking or drinking, whatever it might be, that were for whole lifetimes never handled, but they were avoiding hell all the same. But these could have been saints. Now, a saint basically is no longer in the driving seat. Like St. Joseph, there was availability. Like our Blessed Lady, total availability. So the Spirit of God was in command. And that's the bit that few, it seems, are willing to do. Actually, I remember hearing this years ago, at the age of 13, in one of those Saturday evening prayer meetings I used to go to when still an evangelical. It was near our house. Lots of young men and women were there praying away. And there was one teaching given which has never left me. It was actually this, in a different form. That few are willing to take this extra step of letting Jesus be totally, totally Lord. That means precisely what the Lord said. He who loses his life or his soul for my sake will find it. That losing of the right to will is very radical. No preference, no right, availability to the last grain of our being, and then omnipotence can take over. It's linked actually with two levels. An interior level of silence, receptivity, and also closely linked an exterior one. An interior soul doesn't talk a lot, but receives much. And we know from the visions of Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich that both our Blessed Lady and St. Joseph understood each other perfectly well without many decibels or even syllables.